Doug Smith of the Toronto Star. And the whole concept of having Doug on today was to talk about all these stories and rumors about Damian Lillard coming to Toronto, and he ain't coming, Doug.
No, he's not. And my life's a little bit easier, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because let's face it, it's all about you.
Exactly. Yes.
So, how serious were the Raptors about getting Damian Lillard?
They were right in it. They were pressing, not obviously not hard enough because they didn't get it done, but they were certainly deep in the mix. And frankly, no one saw Milwaukee coming. Like, that was absolutely a jaw dropper around the NBA. The Bucks were not. Everybody heard about Toronto, Miami, obviously. Chicago had some interest, but the Bucks were an afterthought, and that was a jolt around the league when it came out yesterday afternoon.
Well, the Raptors might have been pressing. Did you believe they were serious contenders to acquire Damian Lillard? Because around the league, as you say, it seemed everybody was talking about Miami because that's what he was talking about. And yes, Milwaukee came out of nowhere, and that became a bigger headline than probably any other headline could have been. But I know that from reporting in and around Toronto that the Raptors were right there, but I didn't hear anybody else saying that. So did you believe that the Raptors were about to acquire Damian Lillard?
I didn't. I knew they were certainly in the mix and pressing for it and trying to get it done. And I know on Monday, I guess, the news came out from Mark Spears at ESPN and Landscape, who is a very well-respected national reporter, is very close ties with Damian Lillard through the time together in Oakland, and he had the Raptors as the front runners. And that was an independent, like a third person I have the utmost respect for Mark, and I know he works really hard at the beat. And when he added his voice to it, it had some juice to me, and it went with what I have been hearing around this area.
Before we deal in what the Raptors do next, if they have to do anything, the amount of noise, as Dave talked about it, was fascinating, because this is not an organization that puts that amount of rumors and innuendo out there. There's not many leaks when it comes to what Masai and Bobby do, and when they do their jobs. So was this coming from Portland? Was this coming from Lillard's side? Where do you suspect it was coming?
I think the agencies were probably involved a lot. I think other teams talking to Portland had heard Toronto's name, and they were putting it out there and letting it be known through their sources. You're right, John. The Raptors don't leak. That's the bottom line. Bobby Webster, Masai Ujiri, and all their people, they don't talk. They don't talk to me. They don't talk to Mike Grange. They don't talk. They're quiet, and they have been historically. Like, we didn't get a whiff of Kawhi Leonard. You go back to last year, and the draft night, everybody likes to Woj and Shams like to get the draft pick minutes before the teams make it. They got the first 17 right, or first 12 right, and they didn't do Toronto because they couldn't get a grasp on it. The Raptors don't put stuff out there. And I guess when you started hearing it from other places that would have been involved on the periphery of it, it gave it some juice. But, in the end, they didn't get it done. But I know they were certainly trying very hard to do it.
So will there be any whiff about Drew Holiday and the Raptors?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I think Lillard's fit because he's one of the top 75 players of all time, and he's a very, very good three-point shooter on a team that doesn't have any. Holiday's a great defender, and he's a very, very good player, but he doesn't fit the Raptors like Lillard would have. So I don't think Toronto will be in on Holiday, and I don't think they should be. I think they need to retrench and go with what they've got and see where that takes them.
How much has this reset the Eastern Conference?
Well, it certainly, in my opinion, makes the Bucks the favorites. I think even ahead of Boston. I think going into it, Boston was sort of the benchmark, and there were a bunch of other teams. Milwaukee, with this move, has separated themselves. I think there were concerns with the Bucks about getting a little bit older with Lopez and Middleton, and they're always hurt. And Holiday's a great player, but he doesn't have the offensive abilities of Damian Lillard. And putting Lillard with Giannis is just it makes them the favorites in the Eastern Conference to me right now. Maybe not the favorites in the NBA, but once you get to the finals, who knows?
Well, you got
I had some. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm speaking of the East. I mean, now, Miami has to, how do they get better? Boston, how do they get better? Because they know they have to, because of what Milwaukee has done. So how do the Raptors get better?
Well, I don't know that there's a trade out there for them to get better. If Buddy Hield from Indiana is available, he's a 3-point shooter off the bench. They might investigate that. The cost obviously wouldn't be as much as it would have been for Lillard. But I think they need to now figure out with a new coach how they can maximize the talent they got, and whether that's enough to be a top 4 team or a top 6 team. That's very debatable. But Dave, John, you guys know you got to play the games, and who knows what's going to happen through an 82-game season. I think the Raptors don't have enough shooting. They got to try to find some, but if they can't, they got to make, with a new coach, they got to try to make this group work. And again, we're not going to know until they start playing games.
Well, it also has reset the focus on a few things that are on this roster, like contracts for Anunoby and Siakam. Because when you didn't get Lillard, then you start looking deeper into the storyline and saying, "Oh my goodness, a year from now, this roster could look totally different."
Yeah, and Gary Trent Jr. is in the same thing, eligible for an extension. The 3 of them are key members of the team. I don't think anything's going to happen with Siakam, because if he waits, he has a chance to get what's known as a supermax deal. Right. If he becomes an All-NBA player at the end in this season, he's eligible for a deal that's about, I think, $75 million more than he could sign today. And Anunoby doesn't, I don't think, make sense to him to sign, because the Raptors, by the CBA, are limited what they can offer him today and can offer him a lot more next June. So I don't think there's a huge urgency there. I think if they could get those guys under contract, they would. But I'm not sure if I'm those guys. I might want to wait and see where I can sort of max out my earnings, because Siakam is 29 years old. You're coming up. This might be your last big deal. You might want to wait and maximize it at all, if at all possible.
You called Lillard one of the 75 best of all time. Have you seen one of those 50-point games where you thought you were watching Steph Curry and not Damian Lillard? I mean, what's the best of him that you've seen?
I don't think he had he hasn't dropped a 50 on the Raptors, but I think he had a 30-point half, and he just gets going in he's in the zone. He just can't miss a shot, and he takes them from the logo from midcourt, and they're just jump shots. They're not like forced heaves. He's certainly not, in my opinion, in Curry's class, but he has got to be one of the top 2 or 3 prolific 3-point shooters in the game. And in Milwaukee, with our old ex-Raptor assistant Adrian Griffin coaching him, I think he's gonna get free reign, and it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch him and Giannis work together.
And it emphasizes to Giannis that yes, they do want to have a championship team, and probably helps Giannis stay in Milwaukee a little longer. Correct?
Well, yeah, he's eligible for an extension. He wasn't going to sign it, he said, until he found out, he's going to wait. I want to win all the time. And this certainly gives him a chance to win. It might turn the tables to get him to sign it more quickly, but he also might want to wait, because there's other issues now in Milwaukee. Middleton and Lopez, as I mentioned, are getting a little bit older. Bobby Portis is a little bit older. And in 2 years, I'm not sure what that team's going to look like. So maybe Giannis waits, but this year they got a chance to win their second title in 4 seasons. No question about it.
Do the other 3 guys on the court ever touch the ball?
Not an awful lot. If they might miss, get some rebounds, but that's going to be about it. But they do get, Middleton can space the floor a little bit. He's going to get some shots. Losing Grayson Allen's not that big a deal, because he just was an opportunistic shooter. But it's a 2-man team. It's a very, very good 2-man team. And the other guys are going to get chances, but not nearly as many as they got last year. Let's put it that way.
So, not to beat a dead horse about the trade, because it's not going to change anything. But what weren't the Raptors prepared to give up? Do you have any clue what they weren't going to give up in order to do it? Because honestly, it doesn't look like Milwaukee gave it very much up in terms of draft picks and in terms of talent off the roster.
Yeah, well, 1 pick and 2 pick swaps and
the Phoenix aspect of all of this too fits into what was going on, right?
Yeah, Portland needed to get out of. I think Portland wanted to get out from underneath Nurkic because they're not really. He doesn't really fit, and getting Phoenix involved to do Nurkic for Ayton was a significant part of the deal. I don't know if the Raptors. I know the Raptors weren't going to give up two of Anunoby, Siakam, and Barnes. They probably would give up one of them, but I don't know which one. Personally, I would want to keep Siakam and Anunoby, and maybe that wasn't satisfactory to Portland. Now we don't know what Portland was thinking. We don't know how much the Phoenix part of it was, how big the deal that was for them. The money is the money, and the money's just that's the cost of doing business. So I don't think that's a huge factor. But I don't think the Raptors were going to go. They weren't going to go up two of those top three, no question about it. And maybe Phoenix or Portland wanted one that the Raptors didn't want to do. But I don't have any original reporting on that because, again, the Raptors don't leak. They may whisper to me next week in Vancouver training camp, but today they're gone to ground.